In our walk with the Lord, worship is such an integral part of who we are and where God is taking us. And one of the premier worship leaders in our nation right now is Ricardo Sanchez. And you may have known him as singing with Israel Houghton, maybe Mac Powell, maybe you've seen him with Darlene Check, maybe you have heard of him as the worship leader when he was working with Jetson Franklin. But he's here with us now. And Ricardo, we're glad to have you here, brother.
Tim, it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Now, we want to talk about just how you came to be. You know, a lot of times when folks are leading worship and God uses them in such powerful ways, they were raised in the church and God moved them on. But that's really not your story.
It's not. There was a season of my life where it was brand new. You see, I grew up in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I have a Catholic background. And though I knew who God was, I never had a relationship with Jesus. So my whole life, one of the things my mother and father did that was awesome is they took us to church. But as the weight of life happened, Dad had to work more and more, and Mom had to go to work, so we stopped going to church. And it was interesting that once Dad stopped going, we all stopped going. But where I was in Scottsdale, Arizona, as a Latin family, there was not a real huge Latin community in Scottsdale. But I was surrounded by a bunch of friends, and I was the local Latin kid, you know, and I'm the youngest of 6 boys, 5 boys and 1 girl, 6 of us total. So we went to a school, and some friends of mine invited me by the time I got into junior high and high school to a ministry called Young Life. Had no idea what that was. I just knew they talked about Jesus, and what I learned then was the Gospels. They would just share stories about Jesus, put some life application to it, relate it to me as a teenager, as a high schooler. And then at the end of the quarter, they would give a call for salvation, and I received that call. I accepted that call when I was 17, my senior summer, at one of the Young Life camps. But my father, and we grew up singing mariachi Spanish music. And so that's kind of where we cut our teeth in singing. And it kind of translated over when I got involved in Young Life to, hey, you play guitar, why don't you learn these 4 songs? And, you know, so it was kind of like a youth group for unchurched kids.
What was the thing, so many teens, that area is a real connect for whether they really make a commitment to Christ, or if they don't make that connection, by the time they're 15, 16, 17 years old, they never will, or very hardly will. What made the connection for you? What made that click that said, you know what, this is really what I need in my life?
I was 5 years old when we started singing. So my father, you know, was excited about the attention that we were getting. So we would go into local clubs at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I would see things that really only a grown-up should see. I would hear things that only a grown-up should hear. So there were things in my life that I recognized that weren't pure and weren't whole. And not that I was on drugs as a young kid, or, you know, being sexually active at that age, but I did see all that stuff. And so when I connected the Jesus of the Catholic Church is really Jesus with the Protestant Church, to me there was no war going on of theology. To me it was simply, that's the Jesus that I learned about when I was a kid. But what the difference was, Tim, is that these guys at Young Life were saying you can have a personal relationship with that Jesus. So it was very intriguing for me. And even as a young boy, when my parents stopped going, I would still walk to Catholic Mass because there was something there that I couldn't define. And in the traditional Mass, it's not real explanatory. I mean, they don't really explain what they do. I just knew those people like me, there was a peace there. So when I got into Young Life, they kind of connected a huge dot for me. It's the same Jesus. You can actually talk to him every day. You can be at home and talk. And then I started learning a little bit more about worship, got involved in a Pentecostal church. And that's kind of a brief synopsis of how I came to be involved in Christian music.
What was the difference for you between being a part of a religion and making that connection of the reality of a relationship?
Yeah, well, again, for me, there wasn't a whole lot of water under that bridge because I was a kid. So I really didn't connect the serious depravity that religion allows you, the serious void that religion, I believe religion keeps you in bondage because religion is about acts. Religion is about what you do for me, then I'll do to you. But as I began reading the Gospels, you see, Jesus didn't say, you know, you got to first believe, then, you know, you belong. Jesus said, no. Jesus would go to people you read it, throughout the Gospels. Jesus said, come follow me. It was not you believe and behave, then you belong. It was, no. you belong first. And if we're worth our salt, you'll start to believe what we're saying is true. And you'll start to behave. You know, the pattern will. So for me, it was kind of this interesting circle without so much resentment or anger or frustration to this thing of religion. It was only later that I learned about religion, because I met the person of Christ before I met a denomination or a church or organized religion. So for me, I didn't really recognize that what I was in was a religious tradition as opposed to a relationship. And it was kind of an easy step, not a leap, not a jump, more so a step than anything.
And you can find out and hear about that love and that relationship in all of Ricardo's music. And we'll send you to that website so you can find out more about it. But more with Real Life when we come back after this.